Well, hi, everybody, and a very pleasant and beautiful Monday morning to you. It's Steve Dolan here along with Ramon Scott, and we're going to talk a little bit about the San Diego Padres again today. First of all, as you know, Ramon, breaking news, so to speak, the Padres game tonight in Colorado's been rained out. Tomorrow night's iffy, and a doubleheader on Wednesday when there's supposed to be good weather. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first of all, Ramon, as you know, over the weekend, the Padres lost 2 out of 3 in San Francisco, and they did have a chance to go into first place. Just want to get a little bit of your impressions on what happened over the weekend.
Well, I think things are starting to shake out the way they should. Taking care of business in the third game of a series like this really speaks volumes when you really look at the big picture, and another great series for the Padres. Face it, Steve, Saturday night's game was pretty boring, actually, right? And probably the worst game of the season. Even the games that we've lost, right? I'm not sure there's been one that really just never really captivated my attention, considering all the other great sports that were going on that night. Just kind of threw the Padre game in the background after a while and rolled from there. But no problem at all. I mean, this was another fine series. Plenty of question marks. Nothing really answered or transpired. That we'll talk a few things certainly that are noteworthy, but a good series. Giants still in first place. I think the most fun detail of the weekend right now, Steve, is that if the playoffs started today, the Dodgers would be on the outside looking in. So let's just end the season now. We don't want to get snowed out here in Colorado, and we'll just, get the Dodgers out of here and move on.
Well, we'll see, because as you know, the Dodgers have lost 5 straight series. Of course, that started when they lost 3 out of 4 to the Padres. And, of course, going back to this weekend with the Padres, I got my scorecards from the last 3 days working as a statistician for Valley Sports San Diego. Yesterday, I mean, my goodness, after Saturday's game, like you say, one of the more boring games of the year when the Padres were beaten 7-1. Yesterday, after that game on Saturday, Jace Tingler, the manager, talked about, going to get the bats hot. Well, the bats got hot yesterday, 11 runs on 16 hits. And as you know, I mean, look at the home runs yesterday. Fernando Tatis Jr., 454 feet. Jake Cronenworth, 445 feet. So they had 899 feet of 2 home runs in the 11-1 win against the Giants. And, of course, the stat I like, runners in scoring position, 6 for 15, batting 400. And what I thought was cool, if you saw the game at all on TV yesterday, was the people in the McCovey Cove out in the bay. I thought it was funny, the home run that Jake Cronenworth almost hit a kayak. And then the guy that cracks me up in San Francisco, there's a guy named Dave. Last year we noticed him on the broadcast, that Dave was always getting all the balls. And yesterday some other people got the balls. But it was the first day that anybody out there got any, because on Saturday, wasn't so great for the Padres, that 7-1 loss. And again, Ramon, something I mentioned on the last show, East County's Joe Musgrove, ever since the no-hitter, he's had 5 starts. He's 0-4, and 4 of those 5 starts haven't been Java Joe. I mean, Saturday, 5 innings, 8 hits, 4 runs. Of course, 3 of those runs came in the second inning on the home run by Brandon Crawford. But again, he's still not quite the Java Joe we're used to. And to me, maybe one of the more disappointing things in the series, going back to Friday night's game, the Giants 5-4 win. Blake Snell, 4 2/3 innings, 1 hit, which is great in 4 2/3 innings, 4 runs. My gosh, walked 6 guys in 4 2/3 innings. He still can't go more than 5. 95 pitches, 48 balls, 47 strikes. That needs to be corrected, especially, going to Colorado. You can't be pitching like that. So, again, Ramon, the Padres could have gone into first place by winning 2 out of 3 this weekend. They didn't. But as you've always heard me say, it's still early. About June 15th is where you're really worried about where you are in the standings, just as long as you stay in it. And they're certainly staying in it. Game and a half behind the Giants.
Yeah, like I said, no problem with this series. It was a good series. I'm sure the Giants feel the same way about Sunday's game that I felt about Saturday's game. And if you really want to throw it back, Friday was kind of the rubber game that was played in the first game, right? And the Giants are at home. They got that victory, and that's fine. They still continue to play well. I think most people can agree it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors to a certain extent, but look at across the league right now. There are really no standout teams, and I think that's the most interesting thing when I talk about the Dodgers right now, not in the postseason. I mean, you just don't have a dominant team. I think one of the great equalizers that's becoming evident. We're talking about the offenses, and believe it or not, Steve, offense was up in May considerably over April, believe it or not. And I think as things warm up, that might be cliche, but I think the hitting is catching up to the pitching. So maybe that's when some of these more elite teams might separate themselves a little bit more. No offense really in this, other than maybe Boston, right? I mean, wow,
Yeah.
Boston really is the only team that really has a standout offense at this point. And everybody else is just kind of mediocre. So there's still a lot to be settled. And I stand on what I said last week. I've been wrong on a few things on our shows, but I've been right about some things too. And I just think that as we progress through the weeks, those better teams will start to emerge, no doubt. But right now, everyone's just mired in a funk, and it's league-wide. So pitching continues to be the story, I think, in Major League Baseball. And that's the equalizer. I think when there's less runs being scored, those big bats and big contracts aren't producing as much. The home run total you don't see. We talked about Tatis in the home run race, and all the home run leaders kind of have the same number of home runs. There's not 3, 4, 5 guys already in double digits or anything. So the equalizer is the fact that there's just not explosive offense out there, and I think that allows for teams to get in there and get some victories early. So hats off to these teams playing well. The funny thing was, they talked yesterday about what happened in the National League West, and the Padres won and the other teams lost. So let's hope that continues. And going into Colorado, that's what you want to look at, trying to take this series now. And if it's a 3-game series, there's question marks, obviously, even with tomorrow, but a 7-inning doubleheader on Wednesday, I think that kind of helps the Padres.
Yeah, Ramon, I want to touch on a couple things you mentioned, what's very interesting. You mentioned the Boston Red Sox right now. They won 4 straight. Their winning percentage is 64. Before the Red Sox winning streak, this is something that amazed me, that no team in Major League Baseball had won 60% of its games before Boston got on its current hot streak. The last time there were no teams above 60% in Major League Baseball was July 2016. And you also mentioned hitting versus pitching. This is something that really got me through April, that there were 1,000 more strikeouts than hits in April. That drives me nuts. I mean, that, everybody strikes out, walks, or hits a home run. And one other thing, speaking of home runs, with the Padres, they played 16 road games. They have 21 home runs. Petco Park, 19 games, 13 home runs. I know, early in the season, a lot of times it's harder to hit at Petco. Although, I've seen it over the years, a lot of construction downtown. It used to be the wind held the ball in Petco a lot more, but the Padres certainly are hitting a lot better on the road than at home. And, of course, the big thing about that is they are in Colorado, theoretically, these next 3 days. Of course, like we said earlier, tonight's been rained out / snowed out. Supposed to start snowing a little before midnight in Colorado tonight. Supposed to snow through the morning. Then there's supposed to be, the latest on the weather forecast, there's supposed to be rain through about maybe 8 o'clock their time tomorrow night. So tomorrow night's game is iffy. But no matter what, like you say, there's going to be that doubleheader Wednesday. And, Ramon, what's going to be really interesting for the Padres is who they're going to pitch in those games, because originally they were going to go with Dinelson Lamet tonight. Then, of course, Yu Darvish on Tuesday and Blake Snell on Wednesday. I don't know what they'll do. My guess, and this is just a guess, that you may pitch Darvish on his regular rest Tuesday, Snell on his regular rest Wednesday, and maybe Lamet pitches one of those 2 games of the doubleheader, because you're only going to get 2 or 3 innings out of Lamet probably, and it would be better for him to pitch 2 or 3 innings in a 7-inning game of a doubleheader than a 9-inning game where we're going to have to use a bullpen even that much more. That's just my speculation. Don't know for sure. I mean, Colorado's supposed to pitch Antonio Sensatella in the first game of the series. One thing I'll say about Sensatella, he's not real good, but you know what? Last year he pitched 3 times against the Padres, and all 3 times he shut them down. So I'm sure that's one thing the Rockies have in their favor for this series.
Well, I mean, it seems to be a recurring theme, right? I know that some teams have a dominance over certain lineups, and certain pitchers certainly do, and it seems like that's the case with the Padres. You look at the game that Gausman threw. I mean, he stymied the Padres again. And the type of pitcher that he is, sometimes that's the style at this point that this lineup has trouble with. And it wasn't really a surprise. I said on last week's show that would be a tough game to go up against Gausman, and he definitely showed again. But he's been a real big part of why the Giants are looking so good so far. So, yeah, I think that, it's easy to say that it helps the Padres, these 7-inning doubleheaders, but that's what I'm talking about. They still have the depth maybe that Colorado doesn't. So as far as that you mentioned Musgrove, my comments about Joe at this point would be that everyone needs to remember that he was on a career high throughout that whole stretch dating back to the end of last season up until that no-hitter. As decent a major leaguer as Joe has been, I'll be realistic about it. He's been good. He's been serviceable. He's been fine. He's been a workhorse, a durable. He's missed some time too in the past with the Bucks, but a good major league pitcher, no doubt about it. But at this point, or at that point prior to this little downturn, he definitely was on a career high. Joe had never been better in his major league career. It's easy to say that, up to the no-hitter. I mean, that's obvious. But if you just look at all of his starts prior to that moment, they were all, almost talking about a good 2 months of being one of the best pitchers in the major leagues. So, could be a little bit of burnout, could be a little bit of, there was a whirlwind for Joe after that no-hitter, as even though he, you go right back to work and you're pitching on your day's rest. He had, he's still doing some media stuff, it seems like. I just saw something with Major League Baseball. I know there was some taped footage and things like that, but, people are still wanting to know all about Joe, especially as he goes into each and every town because that was the Padres moment. And, well, Steve, like I said, I'll brag to you when I say I'm right about some things, right? I think I'm going to hit my over bet on these league no-hitters, right? The 6.5. We get another one. We almost had another one that same night. So, look, the hitting's going to come around. I don't think there's going to be 5 more no-hitters this year. There will be 1 or 2 more, I would think, especially given these 7-inning doubleheader things. But that's the dominance that the pitching is seeing right now. You have basically a guy who's kind of a soft tosser in Wade Miley. Great career, Wade Miley. Hats off to him. He's done a great job as a major league pitcher, considering his talents and abilities. He's not an overwhelming kind of guy, but he's been around the league for years and years and years, and he's crafty, did a masterful job in his no-hitter. So, kind of bums me out that all these no-hitters are happening, kind of takes some of the shine off of Joe's, but this one, the shine will never come off that one.
Yeah, well, Ramon, one thing about the no-hitters, there have been 4 this year. Madison Bumgarner threw a 7-inning no-hitter, which they're not counting as a no-hitter, although I say baloney with that. It was a no-hitter. Because I know back in the day, a lot of us joked when the Padres went years and years and years without a no-hitter. A lot of us joked their first no-hitter, because back in the day it would count as a no-hitter. They were going to play a 5-inning game. Somebody'd have a no-hitter after 5, and it would count as a no-hitter. Although now in these doubleheaders it doesn't, which, again, confounds me because a game's a game, whether it's 7 innings, 9 innings, or whatever it's supposed to.
It counts in the record book, right?
Actually, they're not counting. Actually, they're not counting.
No, but I'm saying you and me agree that's an official game.
To me, yeah. If the game's scheduled for 5 innings, you throw a no-hitter. Hey, it's a no-hitter. But here's the thing about Java Joe. I really remember before this current little cold streak he's on, he went 30, not just a no-hitter, but he went 31 straight innings without allowing a run. That streak ended with a no-hitter. So, he went through a lot. And, I think Joe's going to bounce back, no doubt. They're still up here in Alpine where I live, over at Cafe Adesso across the way here. They're still selling coffee by the ton, so to speak, because of what Joe's done and what he means to the community. So hats off to Joe. Hey, one other pitcher hats off to, Chris Paddock. I thought he was outstanding yesterday. He'd been out for 10 days, and Kevin Acey of the San Diego Union-Tribune has reported, and I believe accurately, that he was out with COVID, which was really weird because he was vaccinated and then he still tested positive twice. But I don't want to get into that as much as I want to get into what he did yesterday. He threw 53 pitches yesterday, but what impressed me is the way he ended. 3 innings of shutout. with runners on first and third and one out in the third inning, the Giants had veterans, Buster Posey and Brandon Belt coming up. Chris Paddock struck them both out with high fastballs. That's Chris Paddock. So maybe Paddock is finally back to the Paddock. Like you said, no more of this sheriff stuff. He's Chris Paddock. So I like that. One other thing I like, going into Colorado, assuming there's 3 games, certainly there's going to be 2 games on Wednesday because the weather's supposed to be clear. Will Myers goes nuts in Colorado. So let's see what he does now. I mean, I know he's got the knee issues and all, but I think, that Will's going to get hot because he always does in Colorado.
Steve, I think that's what I meant. That's what I was alluding to in our intro, that I think that the Chris Paddock performance was the story of the weekend in San Francisco. For Chris, Steve, we've described it as, overcoming his own questions when he's out there on the mound, pitching with a lead, things that, look, I'm no amateur psychologist here. I'm just trying to look at this man with a big talent and a big personality. And, you have to manage those things. We all look at ourselves back when we were younger and, full of vigor and talent, and our future was ahead of us. And, sometimes you think you're bigger than you are. And I'm not saying Chris thinks that at all. I mean, in a way, he's very, very humble, and he's so tough on himself. That's what I think makes his fire and drive within lend to situations like this where you can see that if anybody can put it back together, it's a guy like Chris Paddock. I mean, the velocity was there, the mental game was there for him, and that's what's so important for Chris. So I think it's refreshing when he said those comments about himself, as self-indulgent as they are, with his self-proclaimed moniker. But I'm not worried about that. I'll be glad to call Chris Paddock the sheriff. He is the sheriff in my mind. But if he just wants to settle in and be himself, that is going to be the best version of Chris Paddock, a guy who just goes out and works because he's a workman-like. That's how he got to this. That's how he got to this point. And the revealing conversation that AC had in his column about his brother. I mean, look, we all follow Chris Paddock's brother's comments? Yeah, we do, because we want to know what Michael Paddock is saying about his brother, because we want to know what Chris Paddock is thinking, because to me, his game is all between the ears. The talent is still there, and he shows it every time he goes out and has a solid performance. The one thing about Paddock, you mentioned the COVID, but right now we got a healthy pitcher. We got a healthy Chris Paddock. I'm talking about his arm, right? So that's what we need. We need our guys who have healthy arms to go out there and deliver many innings. And Paddock can do that as long as he doesn't get into those funks that he gets into when he's not performing well.
Well, I'd like to know a little bit more about his brother, Michael Paddock, because Michael's his older brother. And Chris has always, admired his older brother. Michael gives him advice. They spent 4 hours on FaceTime the other day talking about things. And I think, more than anything, that probably is what helped Chris Paddock turn around. Because like I said earlier, some people remember him as the sheriff and all. He said after the game yesterday, again, he said, I don't want to be the sheriff. I want to be Chris Paddock, or his brother calls him Christopher. And that's what he needs to be, because the thing, again, that impressed me the most in yesterday's game was those 2 strikeouts in the third inning against 2 Giants veterans who are both having very good seasons, by the way, in Posey and Bell. Because, right at that time, the Padres had a 4-0 lead, but either one of them hits a home run or hits a double, and all of a sudden it's 4-2, 4-3, and that game could be a different ball game. So that, to me, right there was what really clinched the game for the Padres, is when Chris Paddock did that. I mean, because even though the score was 11-1, remember, it was only 5-1 after 7 innings. The Padres got 4 in the 8th off Jose Alvarez and 2 more in the 9th when Darren Ruff, a position player, actually pitched for the Giants. So I thought that was, interesting, because that's the second time that's happened this year. And I thought what Ramon was kind of cool in the 9th inning is how, the saying is you want to get veterans off their feet sometimes. So the Padres, Machado at third, Tatis at short, Cronenworth at second, although he went to first, Hosmer at first, they got them off their feet. The infield in the 9th inning, Ha-Seong Kim at third base, Jorge Mateo at shortstop, Austin Nola at second, Jake Cronenworth at first. It was like a spring training game, but I'm sure it was refreshing for Machado, Tatis, and Hosmer to get off their feet for an inning. And now they're going to get a day off today, so they're going to be plenty rested come if they play Tuesday, and if weather permitting, they do. But if weather not permitting, they don't. They're going to be very rested once they come back and play again.
Yeah, they're having extra days off again to a certain extent, right? I was going to ask you maybe what you were going to do tonight, Steve, without a ball. You might get a little 2 days rest here.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be nice to rest. I mean, we've had a lot. The Padres did play 17 games in a row. We had 2 games off last week, off tonight, off Thursday, maybe tomorrow. We don't know. Okay, personally, what am I going to do tonight? My wife's a nurse. She's on call. God bless her for all the hard work her and all the nurses do. If she's home tonight, if she doesn't stay for an emergency, we're going to watch the final episode of When Calls the Heart and find out whether Elizabeth chooses Nathan or Lucas. I hope she chooses Nathan, but be that as it may, I hope that the weather chooses to be good in Colorado tomorrow, because as I looked earlier at the weather forecast, it looks like it's going to rain till about 8 or 9 o'clock, and the game tomorrow night is scheduled for 6:40 Colorado time. So there's a very good chance we won't be back at work tomorrow either. But as I say, that Wednesday doubleheader is going to get in. But hopefully they get a game in Tuesday, because you don't want to be making a bunch of games up down the road, because that's when you really are going to want time off and get your pitchers in order.
Well, and these are some games that we've got to take from the Rockies, considering, in this division, they are the weak sister. So you want to go in there and grab those games. And I think that, we certainly can do that. Steve, when it comes to the series against the Giants, I really didn't think that the Padres were overmatched. But in that Saturday game, I mentioned that, it didn't seem like the Padres are really going to be competitive, but just the feeling of it from the outset. So when they get the offense going like they did on Sunday, and you mentioned that home run, that the splash hit. I mean, the Padres apparently hadn't done that in 7 years. And
yeah.
Was that guy wearing was he wearing Padres gear?
Well, there was a guy out there wearing Padres gear. Yeah, you had Dave out there. Of course, how do I know his name's Dave? We saw him last year. He's got his name on his outfit. And the lady that got the home run, her kayak almost got hit. So it was interesting, because out there in McCovey Cove, the Padres, that was the 4th time they've ever done it. The last time, like you say, in 2014 was Yasmani Grandal. It goes way back to Ryan Klesko in the second year of the Park Open, but it was only I believe the 4th splash hit ever by the Padres, and was the 3rd by a Giants opponent this year. So it doesn't happen very often. As you know, the guy who did it more than anybody, and I don't want to make too many comments on my feelings about him, but that was Barry Bonds. So it doesn't happen often, but it's great. I mean, Jake Cronenworth, my gosh, he put it in there. And if Tatis's ball had been to right field, instead of hitting the front of the lady's kayak, it would have gone over her kayak, or maybe Dave would have gotten the ball. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, that part can be a bit of a house of horrors for the Padres at times. So it was disappointing to end our streak of winning series. But we'll get back on track with the Rockies upcoming this weekend. So, okay, Steve, as far as the bullpen, I mean, I just, I don't know if I have any comments this week. I thought it was a nondescript situation there. One thing that I have not been too correct on is I think Austin Nola so far has not really been look, he's going to be stable and he's going to be a huge help, but I'm not sure that we've seen the best of him so far. Caratini was injured temporarily yesterday with that scary incident. What did you make of that?
Well, that was scary, because the ball came up and hit him right in the throat. I mean, catchers are tough. I mean, I was wondering at the time, will he stay in the game? And he did. I mean, I would say, again, we talk about supplies, players, unsung heroes. Victor Caratini's right there among all the Padres. He's had a really good season handling the pitchers and hitting. He's been a surprise at the plate, too. I think, over the long haul, Austin Nola will be the catcher. He's still coming back. You have a broken finger on your catching hand when you're a catcher. Not good. So he's still getting back in shape, I believe. I think, he's played second base twice in late innings when the Padres were way ahead, when they're way ahead. But I don't know how often that's going to happen. But I think Nola's going to be okay back there once he, again, has caught a few more games. And again, the breathers here and there, the fact they don't play tonight, the fact they're off Thursday, and then the next Thursday they're off too. And Ramon, just wanted to.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about those upcoming. It's a homestand, so we just saw the Rockies were the ones that just played the Cardinals, and well, you know what happened there, Steve, was Nolan Arenado of the Cardinals kind of came back and bit his old team. So, look, we get the Rockies again on that homestand. We get the Mariners, but the Cardinals, that's a weekend series. I think the fans are going to take some keen interest once the Padres return home this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be big, because the Cardinals are playing well. Of course, they have Nolan Arenado, who was with the Rockies until this year. That's going to be interesting. And, like I say, then you got the Rockies and the Mariners, two teams maybe, that you should beat. I mean, and St. Louis started slowly, but they're playing really well right now. So that's going to be a great homestand as far as for the fans to see. I mean, and what's interesting, too, is they're going to be on national TV a couple times also. I mean, Saturday night's game against St. Louis this week is exclusively on FS1. And Sunday night's game against St. Louis is exclusively on ESPN. So, so the Padres are getting some national TV here. So, obviously, and these schedules were made before the season. So, obviously, the Padres were thought to be a very hot team, and they've got those games. And they've got, later in the season, they also have another one exclusively on FS1, and they also have an exclusive game on Big Fox in June when Big Fox, Fox Network shows games. So the Padres are a hot topic in Major League Baseball. They've got national games. And as you know, gosh, like on ESPN, the Padres hadn't been on for 7 years until this season on Sunday night. So all of a sudden, the Padres are a hot topic. I saw where, on the MLB rankings this week, they're still number 4. They dropped from 2 to 4, but, hey, people are thinking highly of them. And so, so be it.
They used to build a clause. I don't know if people remember this, and I don't even remember how back far it was, but I think there used to be like a clause in the TV contract that every team had to appear on the national broadcast. And like you said, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, they kind of scrapped that and said, you know what, forget it. But now we get our just due, and Steve kind of gets a day off too, but won't tell anybody about it.
Yeah, I'll be
another day off.
Yeah, I love doing Bally Sports because we do the Padres every day, and this Saturday we'll be working with FS1. Look forward to that. But again, the Padres, no matter what's cool, it's every Padre game. All 162 games will be on TV somewhere. All but about 6 of them on Bally Sports San Diego, and of course every radio game too on 97.3 The Fan. Because it's interesting because when we do road games, we have us, the home crew, with Don Orsillo and Mark Graham. And 2 doors down, we've got the radio crew with Jesse Agler and, of course, the great Tony Gwynn Jr. And then down a few doors from us, you got Hispanic radio with, Eduardo Ortega, who, oh, my goodness, talk about
legend.
In Mexico, the games are heard throughout there. He is a hero down there. Love him. He calls everybody amigo. He's got about 250 wrestler masks. He's a great pro wrestling fan. He does a great job down there, too, on radio. And, it's just cool because I think the Padres really, that website called awfulannouncing.com, which also recognizes good announcing, has rated the Padres as the #1 broadcast team. So, again, they'll be on Valley Sports, in the next 2 weeks, but this Saturday, FS1, this Sunday, ESPN. So the games are all over the place, but be watching them.
Yeah, and we'll preview that series on Friday this week, the Cardinal series, when we come back. So we just got 1 minute left, and now I've got all kinds of questions for you, but I'll just have to save them for that show, Steve. I'll let you get ready with the outro here as we just a little bit of makeshift situation here. That we almost broke the news, Steve. It only happened about an hour and 15 minutes ago that today's game was canceled. We almost were going to be on the air during the moment that this series was canceled. But I was going to ask you about, you guys, how the announcers aren't going on the road anymore. But AC was complaining about how rough it is to go to all these cities. But we'll save that for another time. Yeah, because as you know, the announcers do fly with the team. I think that's part of the issue right now with COVID. But we'll see. Who knows what's going to happen down the road. But anyway, as I say, the next 2 days, assuming there's a game Tuesday night, and with a doubleheader Wednesday, they'll both be on Valley Sports San Diego. So be watching. And once again, Ramon, thanks so much for being with me. And I'll let you have the last word for today. All right. Well, let's get these ball games in Colorado. And we'll see you on Friday and preview this series with the Cardinals.
Thanks so